Welcome to Previously on X-Men, the podcast that looks at X-Men comics, movies, shows, characters, and more. I'm Hilary.
And I'm Eric.
And we are talking about the animated series. Woo!
Whoa!
We're talking about the Fifth Horseman and Jubilee's Fairytale Theater.
Oh boy.
And they're going to be really great to go through.
Oh boy.
It's going to be so great.
Yeah. Off topic, Hilary just had a birthday.
I did. I'm old now.
Congratulations. You're a year older than me, so you're still in your 30s. You're still living it up.
I am barely in my 30s.
Here's the question all of Gen Z wants to know, Hilary. Are you wearing tube socks?
Is that a thing?
Yeah, it's a thing. Everybody's like, oh, Gen Z can recognize millennials because millennials are wearing ankle socks and Gen Z's wearing tube socks. And it's always like
that.
Yeah, it's always millennials posting about this, and I'm like, no, Gen Z can tell you're a millennial because your hair is graying, you've got crow's feet all over your eyes, you're older. The same reason I can tell someone's a boomer because they will look 70.
It? You're making me sad?
No, I'm sorry. It's just so silly that like millennials are like, no, my socks!
Yeah, no, that's
away.
True. But actually, I guess this will probably make me sound like an old person, but I thought when I saw something about that, I was like, it's normal because my son wears all of his socks pulled up to his knees. Yeah. And I always sort of thought that was like this weird idiosyncrasy that he had. But I guess he's just trendy.
I got taken to task like until only like 5 years ago. I don't know if you remember, I was wearing tube socks all the time. I never stopped wearing tube socks. And your husband and my wife really would focus in on it. And I just was like, it's not worth it anymore. And I just replaced them all with ankle socks. And now apparently people can tell I'm old.
You were on the right side of history. You should have stuck with it.
Yeah, that's true. Speaking of right side of history, I just did an X-Men improv comedy show at Heroes Con in North Carolina.
That's right. I was going to bring that up and I forgot. Yeah. How was it?
It was good. We had a fun show. It was the first time something like that had happened at Heroes Con, and I handed out a lot of flyers like I was telling people to come to the Lord. And we had a quiet crowd when it came to suggestions, but they were very laughy. They laugh a lot at this stuff. So it was hard to be like, all right, we need a mission the X-Men might go on that's not that big of a mission. And it's just crickets. And then I come out.
At a convention, they didn't have opinions?
Yeah, but then I come out and be like, oh no, this isn't the X phone, it's a banana. And everybody's like, I mean, that's not what I said, but...
What was the one? You sent me a video and you said something because you kept saying that your mutant power caused you to only have one mouth. You couldn't stop yourself from saying that, and then eventually you broke out into the scene and you were like, sorry, I only have one mouth, and it killed me.
Yeah,
it killed me.
That was one of them. So yeah, there were a bunch of us. We did if you've seen Whose Line It Is Anyway, it was that, but everything was X-Men based. What's
not to love, man?
So it was a good time. We made fun of Mysterio at one point, so not all X-Men, but
so you broke free of your constraints there.
Well, that was a suggestion by somebody. We're like, we need a villain who's not really a villain, who has a non-threatening power, and someone in the back was like, Mysterio!
Mysterio? Is he not really a villain?
No, he is! I was kind of I was like, okay, take that, Steve Ditko! No, but it was just funny. I got to do a little joke about his head being the little trouble bubble.
Oh, that's pretty good. I like that.
Yeah. Well, that's improv.
That's improv.
Hilary, to celebrate your birthday and my success at improv, we've got 2 fantastic episodes to talk about.
So fantastic. Let's improv about how fantastic they are.
Okay.
No, let's not. I'm not up for that.
Oh, okay. I was going to do about how they were like an apocryphal gospel that was taken out of
that's
the
not
Bible
bad. I could maybe have done with that.
Yeah, Nicaea. They were like, no!
The
These
Council of
episodes
Nicaea.
don't belong in the Bible!
Oh, my word.
Yeah.
Anyway, they're bad episodes, but we're going to talk about them, and it's going to be fine.
Are they both bad, or is one better than the other? Find out.
You got to listen to the end to find out.
What price reviews?
Let's talk about X-Men. Okay, so the first episode that we're talking about is The Fifth Horseman. It originally aired February 8, 1997, directed by Larry Houston, written by Stephen Melching and David McDermott. Every time I hear these names, it's like the first time I've read them, and I know that I've done it a million times.
So, the last episodes we talked about were both the two-parters that I felt like, maybe the Storm one wasn't great, but I felt like both the Phalanx Covenant and the, whatever the Storm one is called, Storm something, Love and
something
Thunder,
about Storm.
Who knows?
Love.
Those two-parters, they weren't the best in the world, but I think they still felt like they were part of the X-Men animated series that we had watched.
Yeah, I think they felt a little bit like a step up from the bad ones of the previous season.
I think the Phalanx Covenant is a fun episode for the most part, but I think this is where it's just so obvious and there's no going back.
They've got senioritis at this point.
Oh my word. What's the first episode? The Horseman of the Apocalypse. The Fifth Horseman.
The Fifth Horseman. So you hear Horseman and you're like, Apocalypse. Okay, so we've got Apocalypse coming. And
who we just got rid of.
Yeah. So, like, I guess he's dead in this, right? He starts out dead and he's trying to come back or something.
We just got rid of him in that four-parter, Beyond Good and Evil, which was supposed to be the whole series finale. He was supposed to be erased from history, basically, because of what the psychics did to his Lazarus chamber and all that. And here we find out, no, he can't be destroyed. He's just ethereal and he has no body right now, which is... It's just such a weird thing to do right out of the gate after you did this big four-parter to get rid of him.
When's the last time we did a Shadow King thing? Because this could have worked for Shadow King.
It could have worked for Shadow King. It's been a while.
Anyway, they chose Apocalypse. So we start out by seeing like hounds or something. Like some lackeys for Apocalypse are looking for someone to sacrifice.
Yeah, some lackeys? That's Caliban, Hilary.
Well, did we know it's Caliban to begin with, though?
You know, Jubilee recognized him, and for the life of me, I could not remember if Caliban had ever been in this show before.
I cannot remember. I think he was in the Morlocks episodes.
Yeah, that would make sense. I just remembered nothing about him, and I definitely don't remember him meeting Jubilee. Like... Was it the Christmas episode?
Well, remember, I think it was the Christmas episode because she really bonded with, like, the Morlocks in general. I don't know if it was Caliban specifically, but I guess I felt like it was linking back to that. But that's later in the episode that whole thing comes into play.
All right, yeah, I was just like, oh, it's but it's also big.
So you just knew it was Caliban?
Well, he's in his...
Just because of his power?
That's his design when Apocalypse turns him into a horseman in the 80s.
Okay, so I don't know about this. Then I just know little Caliban.
In X Factor, when Apocalypse is being first introduced, Caliban's a big part of it, and he becomes a horseman of Apocalypse during the same time Angel becomes Archangel.
Oh, okay.
That design carried on at least, for a while in the 90s. He had that design during the Executioner song. So... yeah, I recognized Caliban, but I didn't remember if he was here until Jubilee's like, Caliban! I'm like, huh, okay.
They're
He's
buddies.
been here before. Yeah.
So initially I thought that they were in that we were seeing something in the past because it's kind of like they're like in a jungle and there's is it Mayan kind of architecture and stuff like that?
Are we in the jungles?
I don't know. It's just
I
think it's Mexico. I forget. See, listen, it's been a minute since I've watched this. But I think it's Mayan stuff. Because there's a whole thing later about that. Like, they're too far south to be seeing what they're seeing. Anyway, it's like an ancient-y vibe, basically, that's happening in this area. And then Cortez shows up.
Fabian Cortez. And he is as annoying as ever.
Oh boy, is he. And he's more grandiose, if possible.
The master would see.
Yeah. Wow, that was a lot.
He's so over the top, but there's nothing entertaining about his over the topness. Mm-hmm. And he's not interesting enough as a character to support
he's just annoying.
when Apocalypse is over the top, when Sinister's over the top, they have a lot of other things going on with them.
Mm-hmm.
But Fabian Cortez is just like, I am your maker, and it's like, shut up. You're such a he's like the best friend of the school bully.
Which I think is sort of what he's supposed to be like, but it doesn't make him fun to watch.
No, it doesn't. Or listen to.
But did we also think he was dead?
So during the end of Sanctuary, the episode where Magneto had created Avalon out of Asteroid M, it ends with Cortez being like lost in space, but then like a little stinger right before the credits, we find out he's captured by Apocalypse.
Okay, so we had a hint that this kind of thing was going to happen. Okay.
Yeah.
So he's apparently in charge of this crazy cult in, I think it's the jungle, I don't know, who is devoted, and I guess has been for like generations, devoted to Apocalypse, but it's not in Egypt this time. It's like like a South American situation.
Yeah, we're in Central South America. The pyramid is like a step pyramid.
Yeah. And he's announcing that if they just have to catch a young mutant, and they'll do some ceremony, and then Apocalypse will be able to return and just take over that body, basically.
Yeah, he's not even looking for like a specific strength level or power, because he just wants someone young. Which, okay.
Yeah, because I guess like what actually eventually happens, he like uses the body, but just ends up with his own body. So I guess he just needs some like baseline situation to take over.
We have a new voice for Apocalypse here.
Oh, yes.
Our Star Trek alum did not return, and instead, he's voiced by Lorne Kennedy, who, other Marvel X-Men stuff, he voiced Magneto and Apocalypse during X-Men vs. Street Fighter, the video game. He voiced Apocalypse during Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter. And he voiced Magneto in Doctor Doom in Marvel vs. Capcom 2, New Age of Heroes. All of those games are soon to be collected in a Marvel vs. Capcom collection with like all 6 of the games plus the Punisher for some reason.
My sister played Marvel vs. Capcom stuff when we were in high school, and I always thought it was really cool from afar, but I never played it. I assume you played all of these.
No, because a lot of them were arcade games, so they get replaced. Like X-Men versus Street Fighter is replaced by Marvel Superheroes versus Street Fighter, which is replaced by Capcom versus Marvel. And
so you just couldn't keep up.
Marvel vs. Capcom 2, it's been hard to find physical copies of it, and it's never, because of the licensing, it's never available digitally. So this new collection that's coming out this year is very exciting.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Marvel vs. Capcom 2 has like 2 Wolverines. It's got Bone Wolverine and Adamantium Wolverine.
Weird.
It's huge. They've got so many characters.
You know how I feel about oversaturating with Wolverine.
Well, there's only 2.
It's only the 2.
Yeah.
How many versions do all the other characters get?
I think some of the other characters get a different one, but I don't think it's not as much as Wolverine. Yeah.
Yep. There you go. Okay.
Okay.
Anyway, so he needs a young mutant. Meanwhile, Beast and Jubilee are hiking for some reason.
Yeah, they were driving. Well, they had to hike because the bridge was dangerous.
Right. They're driving along for some research purposes that Beast is doing. And I think Jubilee is just tagging along. And they come up on a rope bridge that they can't drive, and so they have to cross over it on foot.
Yeah.
And this is where they find on the bridge there's like writing, and it's Mayan writing, and Beast's like, but we're too far south for Mayan, that makes no sense. And so that has something to do with the fact that the Apocalypse cult is there.
Yeah. And we're also in the new animation style here.
Oh my word, boy, are we.
So a big reason for the change is because, and it's pretty obvious when you watch it prior to the change, they were going for that very detailed Jim Lee design from right out of the gate from episode 1. And the issue with something like that, as opposed to the Batman animated series, is it's just a lot more work and complicated, and the animation in the X-Men series was never super fluid.
Yeah, that's true.
And so they use this pickup to, change the style. But I think the other issue is I remember reading they had less money during this season as opposed to the previous seasons. So if you're going for a simpler style, but then you're not paying for like the quality in the animation, you get something that looks like these episodes. Which
is to say, not great.
Yeah, it looks like real, like those other, if you rented like a Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs from Blockbuster as a kid, and it wasn't the Disney version, it looks like that. It looks very much like we're trying to simulate the Disney vibe, but we don't have the finances that Disney does.
That is what it feels like, yeah. And I feel like the character designs are different too. Like they're a little more like round or something. It's just it's kind of a cutesy
the eyes are
look.
much bigger, like they're like the Disney big eyes, like post Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast kind of eyes. And the hair is usually less. You can see that the animation allows them to move in different ways, but it's not good. And I find like all the facial expressions to always be ugh.
Yeah. Well, there's nothing edgy about it. It's very just like la la la. And then the storylines just kind of play right into that.
Well, and they just even though we're revisiting Apocalypse, there's nothing that feels connected to the 70 plus episodes we watched prior.
Mm-hmm.
It all, there's still like, it's still the same continuity and all that, but there's no sense of we're moving it. It feels like the way the MCU feels now.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we still here?
That is it.
All right. Beast gets captured and turned into a monster by Fabian Cortez.
Mm-hmm. And it seems to affect his like memory and cognition and stuff.
Yeah,
too.
He's just like, and he makes so many annoying grunty sounds. I think looking at him in this style is what really put me on like, you're trying to be like the other Disney and it's bad.
Yeah.
With his monster look. And because now they're going to use Jubilee because she's a young mutant.
Yeah, why couldn't they? Did they lose the other guy? Because they started searching.
Yeah, the other guy got out. I don't know why they don't just use Jubilee now. I don't know why they couldn't use Beast.
I think they always say young. They always say young mutant.
Oh, that's right.
So I guess maybe just, I don't know, because he's immortal, so why would that matter? But
yeah,
the Hound people catch like Caliban and stuff, catch Beast and Jubilee. They decide that they're going to use Jubilee, but like as a side thing, Caliban is sort of secretly being like, "Oh, we can't use Jubilee. I like Jubilee." So they bring them to Cortez. Cortez turns him into a lunatic. Beast runs off. And they just let him go. They're like, "Well, who cares? We have the little young ones, so we're going to keep going with what we're doing." This is then Crazy Beast finds their Jeep and sort of looks around and finds pictures of himself and seems to be sort of piecing together who he is and that kind of thing.
Who am me?
Who am me? And then he decides he's going to go back and I guess save Jubilee. We're just kind of interpreting his manic behavior. But he goes back to the temple.
Mm-hmm.
And then the ceremony has begun. And Jubilee is like strapped to a stone bed thing. Mm-hmm. And they're gonna summon Apocalypse.
Yep. And he's just swirling. I think like the planets are aligning too.
Yeah, that's true. There is some element of timing involved. They have to do it now or it won't work.
By the time we get to all of this, Beast saving Jubilee, getting turned back, Apocalypse trying to come back, fighting everyone, Caliban and all this, it feels like this episode is an hour long.
There's a lot going on. There is a cute moment where Caliban just like offers himself in place of Jubilee because he doesn't want her to have to suffer, and they're like, "No, we want her." And then he like attacks them in his like big form. So Cortez just takes his power. So like why you ever attack Cortez is really kind of a question. But then Beast arrives, and he's going to attack.
Yeah, and they free Jubilee. They're all going to escape. The stones are falling down. Fabian Cortez gets caught between the rocks, and Jubilee's like, "We have to help him." And Beast is like, "No, there's no time. Sorry, no time." And they leave, and everything crashes, and Cortez tells Apocalypse, like, my master, I'm sorry, I failed to get you a suitable mutant body or whatever. And Apocalypse is like, oh, but you have. And then it turns out it doesn't have to be young. It can just be anybody.
It could just be any old dude. It was Cortez.
Because he takes over Cortez, and now Apocalypse lives.
Yep, so Apocalypse is there, and it morphs into his body, like the regular Apocalypse body. And Cortez, I guess, is just gone. No more Cortez.
Yeah. Also, this I'm pretty sure there might be a cameo in the very last episode. I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure this is the last time we see Apocalypse in the original 90s animated series.
Why would you bring him back at this point?
He does not come back, if I remember right.
Well, good heavens. He's back, so whatever.
He's back.
What'd you think of this episode, Eric?
It's not good.
It's not good. I agree.
We are in the episodes that, like, this one particularly, I just remember being super bored with. And, like, Jubilee and Beast, maybe there should be a connection because he's, like, a teachery and she's a teenager, but, like, I don't know. Jubilee's often just played as, like, oh, I'm so happy to be anywhere at any time. Like,
Thanks for including me, guys.
Yeah, she's so excited she got to go on this trip, on this, like, field trip and everything. Like, we don't have any of those cliche moments where she's like, ugh, can't even get a signal.
I don't know if maybe yeah, you're right. She doesn't have, like, her snark at all. She's just like,
yeah, we're past the show really trying to do character development. There's no more. Yeah. They're just very one-off adventures because they, I guess, didn't have enough time or interest or whatnot. But we're done with character development. We're done with long-term planning. We're just in the dog days of summer.
Yeah.
Attica.
It does feel like to whatever extent they were going for art in this series, they are no longer doing that. They're just like cashing the checks, doing whatever.
I don't know if it's because maybe people left. I mean, voices changed. I don't know if it's just they had to do a quick turnaround. But one, I know I said Attica when I said Dog Days of Summer, and it's for Dog Days Afternoon. Whatever. Two, there's still so many, like, if, this is like 97, right? There's still a ton of X-Men stories they hadn't touched. But they don't go to those, except for this next episode, which I wish they hadn't. But it's like they're done really trying to adapt classic stories, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty rough. Over on, what is it? It's 90210 Here We Go, our sister podcast that does the 90210 thing. They're dealing with a late stage season where they hate all of the episodes. And I always feel really bad for them when I'm listening to them. So I hope that our listeners feel very bad for us as we're getting through these.
Yeah.
So the next episode, Jubilee's Fairytale Theater, is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. This aired November 16, 1996, so it aired before The Fifth Horseman did. It's directed by Larry Houston and written by Brooks Wachtel.
Yep.
This is the one where we hear the new voice of Gambit.
Well, he did voice Gambit in a previous episode, I think, but it was very quick. I think it was the Phalanx episode.
Okay, well, I must not have noticed because I noticed.
Yeah, well, I mentioned that he will now be the voice of Gambit, like, in video games and stuff going forward for a bit, and the rest of this as well.
Yeah, I remember you saying that, and then I was really surprised when I finally heard it, because I hate it.
It's bad.
It's so horrible.
What's his name again?
I don't want to say, because I don't want to be... It's Tony Daniels, who I'm sure is a kind man, but this Gambit voice is the worst.
Oh, hello, Sherry. I don't know. It just feels so, cheap.
Yeah, the original Gambit voice is not like this stellar Louisiana accent. It's not.
He doesn't have that accent at all.
He's doing a thing, and it works. And this is just terrible.
Yeah, I mean, Tony Daniels' voice sounds more piratey in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and it's very inconsistent too.
Yeah, and Chris Porter had I don't know how to describe it. It was more, I mean, it's why people have such
swagger.
Yeah, it's swagger, and it feels like he's seen some stuff, whereas this one feels like he's been, I don't know, like he should be hanging out with Snidely Whiplash.
Or maybe he's like a substitute teacher, and but he's not like a cool one. He's like the one who really wants you to understand health.
Oh man. Well, he got paid to do this, and I'm doing this podcast for free, so he still wins.
Yeah, I'm sure that he wins the game of life.
Hilary, this episode is based on the classic. I don't know I don't know what the general view is. I have always liked this issue. Uncanny X-Men 153, in which Kitty Pryde tells a bedtime story to young Ilyana Rasputin.
Okay, well, I thought this was weird.
Yeah, well,
all around.
The comic is fun because it's coming after some big issues like Magneto destroying a submarine and Kitty Pryde almost dying. It's coming after the Dark Phoenix saga and everything. So it's a very like light, kind of fun story during all that. And it's also being like, okay, if Dark Phoenix had been a fairy tale, how might it have gone? And it's a happier ending that makes, and the X-Men are like, hey, yeah, thanks for that story. And it's just kind of fun. Whereas this,
yeah,
not great.
Yeah, well, we'll get into it.
So what a slap in the face, because they're never allowed to use Kitty Pryde in this show.
I know, that's a shame.
They use the comic that is it's a Kitty Pryde comic. And then they don't do I don't know. I feel bad.
Jubilee's young, so, they're interchangeable, apparently.
All right, yeah, how does this...
It starts out weird, because Jubilee is in caves there are apparently caves and like an elaborate cave system directly underneath the mansion. And Jubilee is leading a tour of what appears to be just generic children.
I don't know where these kids come from.
Like kids.
Yeah,
from
which is nice,
town? I guess. Why Jubilee? Why in the caves? Why these children? It doesn't make too much sense to me, but she's doing this. And then Xavier and Wolverine and Gambit. Oh, it's because, Xavier and Wolverine and Gambit have to go talk to the president immediately. And so Jubilee has to teach the kids. Yeah. Is what happened.
Because Gambit says, like, I'm not as patient as you or wise. And he says something of like, is Gambit hitting on Jubilee in this? He's
hitting on everyone. Come on.
Yeah, I know. It just felt weird.
So they're in the cave, and the just look, rocks, isn't this fun? And then it caves in, and they can't get out.
Yep.
And so Jubilee actually handles this very well. She's like, I guess I have to like simultaneously figure out how to deal with these children and also not let them freak out. So I'm going to act like everything is fine, but also I'm thinking about how to get out of here.
Yeah. And all the kids are like, I'm scared. And so she decides the best way to handle this is to tell these kids a fairy tale. And I do not know how old these kids are.
Yeah. I mean, they're pretty little. I guess I would think maybe like 7 or 8.
I don't know, because they seem tall, but they all have the most annoying voices.
Yeah. It's a large group of children for a teenager to have to be leading through caves.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's it. But they also all get really into the story. And I don't know, like, a preteen boy that you're going to win the attention from by telling him a fairy tale.
Yeah, I think they must be pretty young.
So,
but they're very into it.
Yeah. And one kid is that nerdy kid who's like, actually, it is. Ugh.
You were that kid. Come on.
No, I was not.
Well, you are now.
Well, stalactites are different from it. So what's the setup of this fairy tale? Jubilee is basically like a Robin Hood character who meets up with Gambit, who's part of a rebellion.
Yeah, against the evil Magnus.
The Magnificent. And she also has a faithful troll with her, who is Wolverine.
Yes.
Who gets to play him all kind of dumb, like, oh, me ain't happy right now.
Because he's a troll. like trolls talk. And there's like Jean is a princess. They're going after the McTaggart crystal. She's like pulling all of this real life stuff.
It drives me crazy that they call it the McTaggart crystal. Why isn't it the Emcron crystal?
Maybe she forgot the name of the
I know she didn't go into space, but they probably told her. It just drives me a little nuts about that.
It's the McTaggart crystal. And it's like in pieces. So the whole point is that she's telling the story, and then the episode is the story she's telling. And periodically we get shots of real life. But she tells the story that the McTaggart crystal has been split up or something, and Magnus is trying to put it together and use the power to control the kingdom or whatever. And does Princess Jean have part of the crystal? Is that what it is?
I don't remember.
Something like that. Anyway, they're doing fairy tale things, and Jubilee saves Gambit. Oh, right. Gambit has stolen part of the crystal, and he gets attacked by Magnus's henchmen, who are just empty suits of armor that he controls, because of the magnet thing. And he's almost knocked out. Jubilee swoops in because she is the leader and saves him. And then back in the real world, the cave sounds like it's collapsing more.
Yeah, like, is the mansion on a fault line?
I don't know. Why would you build a mansion on top of caves? I don't know.
Well, okay. My Batman fan is going to tell you that sometimes it serves a purpose.
I'm pretty sure that's off to the side.
I feel bad for Wolverine because Jubilee's telling this story and she's like, Wolverine's a troll, but Gambit is so handsome and
but she likes Wolverine.
I know, that's the thing. She's supposed to like Wolverine, so why is she making him this dumb troll?
Unbelievable.
He can't even read.
Okay, so I'm trying to follow this. So Gambit in the story. So back in the story, we've just ducked out to be like, uh-oh, things are getting worse in the cave. Back in the story, Gambit has hidden this crystal. Instead of giving it to Magnus, he's hidden it in the Cavern of the Lost. And so now they have to go to the Cavern of the Lost to get the crystal. Because I guess they assume that Magnus will find it.
So why is this the Cavern of the Lost and not
It is never explained.
But why isn't it given a name of something? I don't know what. Why isn't it called like the Apocalypse Caverns or
anything? Yeah,
the Sinister Caverns.
Listen, she is just doing her best in a crisis situation.
Yeah, Sabretooth shows up
in the story. Yeah, Sabretooth is in the story.
Yeah, boy, if he had showed up in the caves, it would have been a very different
That would have been a whole situation. Back in the real world, water has started to get into the cave. From where? We don't know. But it's starting to rise, and she has to move the kids to higher ground.
She has to use her powers to block the water.
That's right, yep. And then she's back in the story. So I guess she's just sort of inching things along. She's basically waiting for people to rescue them. Rather than trying to actually get out of the cave, which is a responsible thing to do.
She uses her watch or whatever it is, and the kid's like, "Oh, is that a locator?"
That was an excellent impression of the children.
Not all the kids need to be rescued, is what I'm trying to say.
I see. Okay.
I feel bad for Sabretooth having to be in this episode as well. Like, I'm pretty sure this is the last time we see Sabretooth, and he has to be in this. He has to be in this story.
Yeah, well, I guess he had an impact on Jubilee because he keeps hanging around in the
True, he did almost
mansion.
Kill her.
So in the story, Sabretooth attacks. Jubilee very easily stops him and takes the crystal. They all get away with the crystal. They go... Oh, right, okay. So they've escaped from this cave. And then the all-knowing Xavier, who is a wizard, tells them that they have to unite the pieces of the crystal.
Yep.
And so they have to go, because Magnus already has a piece of it. And so they have to go to the castle to get that piece, to unify. I don't really know why they have to unify the pieces, but this is what they're doing. So they go to Magnus's castle to get the other piece. Gambit knows where the crystal is because he was working for Magnus initially. They get the crystal, but Magnus swoops in and is like, no, I will get the crystal back. But then he needs Jubilee to unite the gems. I don't like her power, I guess. And he threatens the ogre Wolverine. So she does it. She unites them. But I guess what happens is he uses the power of the crystal and is like, oh, I'm all powerful. And she somehow adds more power so that he becomes too magnetic and everything comes and covers him up.
I don't know why we got stuck with the not great Magneto voice for the big finale, but they were able to get David Hemblem back for this.
He was here for this one.
And it's just like, he's good, but the line where she says, "But you promised," and he says, "I am beyond promises," is such a stupid line.
What does that even mean?
He's beyond promises.
That's stupid. That's stupid.
It just means you're breaking a promise, you jerk. You don't... It's because you have power.
You're just not following up on what you said. Okay, so, yeah, I guess she defeats him in that way, and that is actually the end of my notes, so I don't know how this ends.
The X-Men show up and help Jubilee, and she starts telling the story, because they're like, how did it end, or something. No, that's not it. They're like, say, can we come back?
That's right.
Or something to hear another... It's like, these kids are such nerds.
Yep. They just are taken in by her teenage charm.
I want to put books in these kids' hands so I can knock them out of their hands. Like, I don't think bullying is okay, but they bring out the worst in me, these stupid kids.
Oh, these kids. But they get in a car or whatever, and they disappear off into regular people land.
They call her Miss Lee.
Yes. Is that the first time we've heard her last name?
Because her name is Jubilation Lee.
Yeah. Oh, right.
And I don't think... I think they said it in the pilot, but I don't know if since then we've heard Lee being mentioned as her name.
I hope that these adults that finally return and rescue her recognize that they should not have left her alone with a bunch of children to wander the caves unattended.
No, I mean, it seems like they all think she's, it's great. They can't believe how, because it ends with her, like, going off to play in the forest, and they're like, I think she really is ready for the world, and like, is the world ready light for of her? Our life. Yeah. Should we have adopted any other mutant kids who are in trouble? No, just the one.
We should all parent this one child.
This is a school for adults and this one teenager.
One kid. Yep, that's...
And Wolverine's in the back trying to learn his alphabet like Chris Farley and all those heroes is read. Like uppercase B.
Oh, he's such a troll. So anyway, that's that episode, and it happened, and we have to accept that.
Yep.
I don't think I have a single other word to say about it.
I don't know. I mean, I like the comic issue that the Fairytale is based off, but it has... I mean, the Bad Gambit voice almost sinks it from the start.
Yeah, he's in it so much.
Yeah, I think the thing is, it's just kind of fun and charming and a sweet little, like, moment after a lot of intense stuff in the comics. And here, we're in this 5th season that feels kind of already not great. And so there's no, like, oh, well, we needed this episode. And
yeah,
there's all these other, like, little... Like, yeah, we see Wolverine as the troll, but in the comic... that's when we first see Nightcrawler as that, like, small little bamf. You know what I mean? With, like, the big eyes.
Oh, yeah.
You want to get a little stuffed animal version of him.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also bittersweet because it's telling the Dark Phoenix thing. Here is just, again, this looks like... The story she's telling looks like a cartoon from the 80s.
Yeah, yeah. And it also... You know what I don't like about this? These kinds of episodes... are useful when they sort of illustrate elements of characters that you don't see in the regular storyline, and they sort of like give you a different perspective or like let you see them doing something they would never do, and that's so fun or something. Yeah. But like this didn't feel like it was highlighting anything about any of the characters. It felt like it was just this
Jubilee's
dumb story
dealing
with the names of people we know.
Yeah, she's been dealing with Sentinels and Sabretooth and all these villains since she's been here. So we're not learning that she's tougher. We're not learning anything. I guess we learned that she doesn't think much of Wolverine.
I guess.
So, yeah, again, we're past any episodes being character development. And I had to apologize when we talked about that Wolverine episode where he went to Japan, because in the previous episodes, I had thought we were just getting these Wolverine moments and it didn't feel like it was going anywhere because they had changed format. But then that episode played on those. I was like, oh, we are still getting character development in some ways. But
yeah,
here, yeah, it's like Jubilee doesn't grow. I guess the X-Men realize she's more adult.
I guess, but that's not even really, it's not like that's the point. It's just sort of this throwaway thing at the end.
Yeah. I guess it's like, yes, this is cute, but this, again, feels like it's strictly a kid's cartoon that's not trying to talk up to the kids.
Yes. It's just filling time. It's like twiddling its thumbs.
Yeah, I think adults, we like to say, oh, this show is both for adults and kids, when what we're probably saying is this show doesn't talk down to kids. And I feel like that's what we're talking about with X-Men a lot of time. Like, it's not talking down, it's not sugarcoating a lot of the issues. But this one, I don't know. Maybe it's not technically talking down, but I feel like the audience that was watching X-Men, these 2 episodes are talking down to them.
Yeah, so, I agree.
Anyway.
And, they've theoretically, the viewers will have grown several years through watching the show. And so now we're getting them talking to older kids than at the beginning.
So weird.
And
I feel like if you told me I have 11 episodes and these might be my last, I would want to do stuff that we hadn't been able to do. But again, it just doesn't seem like, I don't know, they didn't have the time, they didn't have the money, they didn't have the hands on deck to...
It really does feel like a senior slump situation where, like, they thought they were done.
Yeah.
They kind of did the big thing, and then they're stuck with more, and so they're just sort of like, oh, I guess we could do more.
That's it,
like the motivation just isn't the same.
The last episodes were supposed to be that 4-parter, and so, they have to come to work and be like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah. Like, Jubilee's in a pit.
Yeah.
Oh, well. We're getting there. We're almost. How many more episodes now is it until the end of this season?
I don't know. 5?
5. Yeah, something like that. Well, that's it for these ones. The next ones we're going to be talking about when it's the animated series is going to be Old Soldiers and Hidden Agendas. And already those sound more interesting than the ones we just watched. So
you'll definitely be there for those, right?
I will 100% be a part of that episode. No, because
you always have things to say about Captain America and Cannonball.
Oh my word, it's Cannonball.
Yeah, so you'll be there.
So we'll be. I have so many opinions and interesting anecdotes that will definitely be involved in that. So look forward to my presence in that episode. Yeah. Thank you to Prophetic Music for our theme song. Previously on X-Men is brought to you by the Radio Meanwhile Network. Other shows on the network include This Enduring Life, 90s Music Got Me Like, and 9021 Here We Go. Follow us on Facebook, and be sure to follow the network on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads for info on all of our shows. Please rate, subscribe, or share this show wherever you get your podcasts. See you next time.